What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the After Credits Scene. Super excited to be able to talk about episode 2 of Moon Knight. Just dropped this morning, and I have to say, I really wasn't super moved by it. I really enjoyed it. I was excited to get more world building, excited to see more of the story, and I thought we moved the story forward in a lot of different ways, learned a whole lot of things. The fight scenes were super awesome. It was great to see finally for Mark and Steven to kind of interact, to go full Moon Knight. You got more Khonshu. There's a lot of really awesome things there, but there was so much that left me wanting more. That the episode moved so fast that I think it's going to take a second or a third or maybe even a fourth viewing to pull everything out of that episode that came out of it. Let's get right into the breakdown. Immediately we pick up where the last episode ended, except at the beginning of this episode, when Steven wakes up, he's aware of everything that has gone on the night before as opposed to having a blackout. So I think the interaction between Steven and Mark is changing, clearly. Mark even says it towards the end of the episode that something's different now. So Mark is actually learning a few things as well that Steven has kind of been privy to this whole time. And so something has changed, something's going on here. And we found out this episode, even Mark is trying to figure that out. But the prediction that I made about the key that Steven finds that looks like it belongs to a car. I thought it was a car key, maybe that it belonged to another personality. Ends up being a storage locker key. And after Steven gets kicked out, fired from the museum, he goes and tracks down the storage locker, and we get a look at Mark's lair, I want to call it. It's Mark's hideout, where he's got a go bag, he's got money. Steven finds the scarab, and he's determined to try to figure out what's going on with him. I figured out from episode 1 that Steven only thinks he has a sleep disorder. He is not fully aware that he has a dissociative identity disorder yet. And I thought it was a good inclusion for Disney and Marvel to have the museum offer Mark and Steven help whenever they fired him. In the form of the HR department, rather than just saying, well, you're gone, and it will become this, dismissive scenario with someone with a disability. And so they're handling the mental illness aspect of this show very well, that it's not all sunshine and rainbows for one personality or another. And even the conversation at the end between Steven and Mark, where Mark is describing what it's like to not be in control of the body, and Steven's kind of freaking out a little bit. Was done very well. Back to the lair and back to the hideout in the storage locker room, Steven decides that he's going to take everything to the authorities, and as he's leaving, Khonshu tries to intervene, and Steven runs into Layla for the first time. Was not expecting them to be married. I thought they might be partners, secret agent partners or something like that. Did not expect them to be married. And then Layla is figuring out at the same time that Steven is figuring out that he has these other personalities. And so Harrow's people catch up with them, and they end up going to another part of the city. And I thought the interaction with Harrow and Steven was really, really interesting. I took a whole lot of notes there, just talking about the very thin line between somebody that might be a passionate disciple and somebody that is a religious fanatic. The very, very thin line between somebody that is devoted and somebody that might become a terrorist. It's just the tipping point. The persona that Arthur gives early on is, I know what you're going through. I've seen this. Let me show you how wonderful this can be. And there's a whole lot of great things about it. But soon Steven starts to see that rationale played out further. It's not just what's in front of him, it's what's beneath the surface, right? And that really fits the things about his character that he knows as well. And it's this moral dilemma that gets had a lot of times, and it's a deeper version. The conversation that they have revolves around the question of why do bad things happen to good people, and the other side of that coin is, well, if God is all powerful, why doesn't He just get rid of evil now? And the answer to that question is, without diving too deep into it, is, well, what's the definition of evil? Most people who ask that question, who say, why, if God is all powerful, why doesn't He get rid of evil now, do not consider themselves evil. And so they would say, well, I'm not evil, so if God got rid of all the evil now, I would be spared, and all these other things wouldn't be happening to other people and wouldn't be happening to me, and things would be better. The problem is when you start dictating morality that way, there's no sense of true justice, and Arthur sees justice as something that can be doled out ahead of time, even to innocent people if they are capable of evil. And Stephen, Mark, Conchu believe that you have to wait until somebody actually commits the act. If you've ever seen the movie Minority Report with Tom Cruise, the exact same idea gets thrown out. This idea of, you can't punish somebody for things they have not done yet. And Stephen brings this up with Arthur. He says, I think about killing my boss all the time, but I don't do it. And so this idea that we can be our best selves, we can choose to be our best selves, and people deserve chances and compassion and kindness and all those kind of things. That's where Arthur stops. Arthur stops at compassion and mercy, and only allows people who he or Amit deem innocent, completely innocent, to be worthy of mercy and compassion. And I think Stephen and certainly my Christian beliefs would say that it's that mercy and compassion that can turn somebody from committing evil acts into somebody that is choosing to do the right thing. And so those kind of questions and those moralities are really getting thrown around, and I like the idea of them playing with those things and really making it deeper. In that regard, I really did like the episode because there was a lot of really good back and forth, the dichotomy between good and evil, not just this war going on with Mark and Stephen and Conchu. And that battle and those revelations were very interesting to me in this episode too. As Stephen and runs away from Arthur with Layla, and Layla keeps saying, summon the suit, and Stephen doesn't know what that means, and he gets thrown out a window, and you see this different version of Moon Knight appear, this Mr. Knight character. I thought it was a really interesting choice to have Stephen voice that character, because, like I said, I went into this completely blind, not doing a lot of research on Moon Knight. I assumed that anytime that the Moon Knight costume was on, it was the character of Khonshu just completely being himself and fighting, and Mark and Stephen were taking a back seat, not realizing that the Moon Knight persona is Mark actually just putting on the outfit of Moon Knight and using his powers similar to Tony Stark putting on his Iron Man suit. And so to hear Stephen's voice was really interesting, and it made it really playful as well. It was really cool to see Stephen kind of try to take on that persona as much as he could, so that he didn't have to deal with Mark. And finally he says, look, this is something that Mark is more suited for, and I'm going to let him take charge. Was this really cooperative moment. And even the conversation after the battle between Mark and Stephen was the first time where they really accepted one another and kind of talked to one another, until Mark couldn't handle Stephen, and Mark seems like the crazy one, not Stephen. And so I really liked that they kind of threw Mark into that conundrum, so to speak, rather than just making Mark seem like the sane one the whole time. Because then you'd be forced to say, well, just be Mark all the time, don't be Stephen. And that's not the case. They're having to learn to coexist. And so that's really, really interesting. Another interesting choice that I thought happened was the fact that the jackals that Harrow summons are not visible to everyone. It means that Mark, Stephen, Moon Knight continue to look a little crazy and to everybody else around, and the rest of the world is not aware that this magic exists. It functions in the shadows. And when Moon Knight kills the jackal, it disintegrates into dust. And so you don't have any evidence of them, you don't know they're around, and so that's a plausible explanation as to why this whole world has gone unseen for so long. It'll be interesting to see what changes in the battle when they end up in Egypt. In that regard, I was surprised that they really moved the story forward so quickly into something new there. And actually, Stephen getting fired was the perfect catalyst to allow him to just go to another place. And so all the scenes that you have seen from some of the trailers where he appears to be in Egypt look like they're actually going to be fighting in Egypt, and they got him there really quickly. So you move from London to Egypt, which again moves this out of a very heavily metropolitan area where people are going to see things and go, this doesn't make sense here, and throws it into an arena where people might be a little more dismissive, and this kind of activity can go a little more unnoticed, which means you don't have Avengers and other people jumping into the scene because it happens so quickly that nobody can respond, and it's just rumors of things. And so from a writing standpoint, guys like Kevin Feige and others are really trying to make these things plausible, but really take us on a journey into these new areas with different characters. And so I am very excited to see where the show goes from here. We moved so quickly from London to Egypt that now we're getting to go on this journey that I'm not really sure where we're going. And with 4 more episodes left, there's a whole lot of ground that they could cover and a whole lot of places that they could go, as opposed to just staying in London and pulling these things out. And so since Arthur has the scarab, now they have to kind of jump into the unknown a little more, and they're having to rely on each other. I have a feeling, and we'll talk about it in our next prediction video, that Mark is not going to be able to figure out where Amit's tomb is, and Stephen, being the Egyptologist, so to speak, is going to have a bigger role in figuring this out, because up until now, Mark has been able to do it without Stephen, and they're really going to have to start relying on each other. So that back and forth and the way that they interact with each other is going to be really interesting. Oscar Isaac does an awesome job. He gets to show off his acting chops a little more in this episode, so that was really cool too. A lot more Easter eggs in this episode that I'm really looking forward to digging into. There was another QR code on the sticker for the storage locker. If you caught that, I'm willing to bet there's going to be a lot more Easter eggs in that form, and I would be willing to bet it's another digital comic book, although I haven't looked into it yet. So tell us what you think about the episode. Tell us what you found, what you saw. Give us some of your theories. Check out some of these other videos over here. We got plenty of content for you to sink your teeth into. And as always, guys, when the next one drops, we'll see you right back here. Later.